All right, let me see. Let me double check my settings and then we could go in. Mike, sound good? $865 picker. It's late. Let's go. I think they're telling me to hurry up. That's kind. Thanks. All right. Good enough. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to the lab. It's a late one over here. Stupid music just in the way. Okay, there it is. Sorry. I don't know. More technical issues. However, I've matured in life and typically I would have given up. I haven't. I'm going to prosper through. I'm going to grab the bull by the horns. No sound. Jeez, really? It's showing me that there's sound. Okay, great. Let's just start this before I quit. Ah! Good, great. Everybody can hear. So I know that this is probably about 3 weeks old, but I have been wanting to review this, and I know a lot of you probably already have, and I guess it's old news, which is fine. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to review the interview between JLR and Bobby. I believe her name, Bobby. What's up, Bobby? Believe that she is a neighbor of the Proudfoots. And yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to hear. So let's just get going on this here. Was it a great interview? Is there stuff to learn from this? Not that I mean, does it give you any insight? We'll find out.
You're active in the Sebastian groups. You do talk. You do on JLR investigates. A lot of people are in the chat because no one ever really heard from a neighbor, Miss Bobby.
Now you're gonna make me want to run. Yeah, well, I've kind of kept myself. We're all kind of hidden.
Yeah, I mean, you're active in the Sebastian groups. You do talk. You do share. You share a lot of insight. You've been there from day one, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I was in your group from day one. I was in another group from, well, not really even. Honestly, day one was such a trauma, just dramatic day that I don't even think the only thing I was in on day one was our neighborhood group, because that's where Katie had first commented about him being gone. So no, actually I wasn't in any Facebook groups day one. It was such a crazy moment. So probably.
Yeah, when you say Katie commented, what do you mean by that? She joined a neighborhood group?
Well, so I'm an admin of our private neighborhood group, and she created a post.
So do they go over like where she is relative? I'm sure she probably does. I don't know.
I want to say around, I want to say 7:30 maybe ish. 7.
Does anybody know how? I mean, I know I'm just asking random questions to the air before we get going, but does anybody know how Chris and Katie felt about this? Did they ever comment on it? Were they ever? I am curious if they were upset that this happened or they were
30 that morning
and ambivalent or ambidextrous or whatever.
Monday morning. simply just saying, my son is missing, and kind of commented on a little bit about him. Like, I think she made the comment about how tall he was, and that he was autistic and he was missing. Please check your cameras. It was just like a 2-liner, just real quick, shooting it out there.
So like maybe like an
That's-
hour and a half, hour something after she and Chris that we found out that they called and reported Sebastian missing.
Correct. It was, yes, because I think that from what I understood, she called around 6:30 that morning. I
That's what
think
I'm here to do.
was it about
6:20.
6:30? I think is
Yeah.
okay.
Her
So
fits.
yeah, it was, and I think from what another neighbor said, that she actually caught her SUV leaving the neighborhood right before that, or right after that. And so it was, she did all that and then came back, and then I guess that's when she put it on the Facebook page. But I also remember what I thought was very odd was shortly before that, another neighbor. So if their house is here, if you're going up Stafford, a little bit farther up Stafford, was actually the first one to ask, "Hey, what's all going on in the neighborhood?" Because my older son left to go to work that morning, approximately 8 o'clock, and there was already police all up and down Stafford, like just covering it. And they were already out walking around and stuff. And so I don't know. I guess she saw some of that traffic as she was leaving to go to work, and she posted first on the Facebook page. And then Katie, after that, is when she posted. And I went back to find that, and that previous neighbor deleted her post.
What about Katie's
I don't know.
post?
No, the original post, the first post.
Yeah.
The,
It's no
the
longer there.
neighbor, she, yeah, it's gone. She had to have deleted it, because you can't, if you're not the creator of the post, you can't delete someone else's post. They have to delete it. But when I went back a couple weeks after everything happened and things kind of calmed down a little bit, I was talking to somebody else, and I was like, I remember, didn't such and such make the post first? And this is a neighbor down the street from me. And she said, yeah, I remember that. And I was like, I wonder what the time frame was different. And I went back to look, and it was gone. So the original neighbor.
So I'm a little confused, but that's nothing new. So what she's saying is that this was floating around on Facebook. So it's floating around on Facebook that morning, and that Katie had posted about it that morning. Am I understanding that correct? Keep me honest here. I'm trying to understand. No hate, but that just seemed like a whole lot of information at once. C-Star knows what I'm talking about. I was very confused. Okay. All right. So things are going around in their neighbor. I got you. Okay.
That very first posted asking what was all the commotion going on.
Gotcha. Okay. So Sebastian's missing, and now people are posting about either what they think is happening or what's really happening. Okay.
And I still wonder if that's why Katie posted that. But then it was like 2 or 3 neighbors after. So Katie posted her comment or her post, and then several people commented after. I didn't see anything. Because she was asking, like, everybody check their cameras. I didn't see anything. And then Chris posted underneath that and simply said something like, yeah, my son's missing. That was it.
Oh. So what did it say, like, where the post was originating from, or was Chris around the neighborhood by then?
Okay, so I have twins, and when we first heard about everything, they jumped up and went running out of the house and went across the street down to where they live, and they walked over because they wanted to be a part of helping, look for him. And they went over there, and Chris was not there yet. So Seth was in the 8:30.
8:30. Okay.
8:20 ish. Yeah, because my oldest son had already left for work. He left about 8. Then my twins went. I got the phone call from the neighbor very nearby them that is a good friend of mine. about 8:15, 8:20 that morning, asking if I had heard what would happen, and I had not yet because I hadn't gotten going for the day yet. And then when my son texted me, I didn't answer, so he called my other boys' phone and asked them, "Hey, do y'all see what's going on?" And they came around my room and said, "Hey, Mom, did you hear what happened?" I was like, "Wait, what? What's going on? My phone's ringing. You guys are running in here. Like, what is happening here?" And my neighbor was on the phone calling me. And so as soon as I heard the neighbor tell me the story, what happened, they went running out the door. And
I remember I was working at, this was years ago. I was working at a house. We were doing, it was like renovating drywall with my uncle. It was awful. And a little kid went missing in the neighborhood. It was terrible. But he wasn't really missing. He was actually they ended up finding him under the house. Like he had ran away, but it was quite the commotion for a good 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, it was, so I couldn't even imagine what this was.
went over there to kind of help, with the search and stuff. And they said that they saw Seth and Katie in
Not in spackle.
the front yard and of course, they didn't know the names back then. They just knew, like, now that they've seen pictures, they go back and say, yeah, it was Seth and Katie and Kathy Bowersox and a bunch of other police, law enforcement and stuff like that.
It's lagging. What do you mean? Jeez. Really? It doesn't say it over here.
Like that. But Chris was not there yet.
Interesting.
Well,
Now,
he wasn't there then.
Now, where do you live relative to the Proudfoots?
I live at the very top of the hill on Kellen.
So the next street, the street that turns into Stafford.
The main street.
Main street coming in. So
Gotcha.
just basically what you're now going back to Katie, like what you know or what you heard. When was Katie driving around in her SUV? Like a time frame? Like when do you think she was driving around in her SUV looking for Sebastian, like she claims?
Right. So there's so many different things here because the neighbor that I actually spoke with, that I'm friends with, she's the one that has the camera on the corner of Stafford and Kellen. And I'm not going to mention her name, but she's the one that the camera footage got leaked without her knowledge and her permission that everybody has seen. But I've directly spoken with her. And then I also have directly spoken with a couple other neighbors that live very close to the Proudfoot's house. And the neighbor that I spoke with the very first time that morning, she said that when she was taking her kids to school, Katie was already back from looking. She had just got back from looking, and the kids have to be in school at 7:30. And so she normally leaves the house at 7 to take her kids to school. But Katie was already back and in the front yard, and all the cops and stuff were there. So she stopped for a minute to talk to her, took her to school. My neighbor that had the camera footage told me that her timeline is not working correctly, but when she puts it all together with the sunrise and then the bus coming through and all of that, she said it was approximately about 6 o'clock, 6:15, 6:20. It was right in between supposedly when she discovered him missing. Supposedly she gets up, she runs around the house, she gets dressed, and she drives out of the neighborhood and that kind of thing and goes looking for him. But I know the neighbor next, if you're looking at the Proudfoot's house on the left, when she went running out of her house hysterical, the neighbor next to her was already out. Of course, everybody's getting up, getting ready for work, getting kids ready for school. Bus comes 6.
I think her shirt says "I stand for the flag." She's probably not a big fan of Colin Kaepernick.
6:45, 6:50-ish. 6:45, 6:50. It's been a long time since my kids have ridden the bus, so I have to really think about that one. But it's definitely before 7 because the kids have to be in school in class by 7:30. and we're the last pick up before he actually goes to school because we're right next to the school. So everybody was getting up and getting ready for work and everything. So she actually saw her out, and she asked her what was going on, and she told her, and so she actually walked around the house and was helping her look around the house. So she was already back from looking around 7.
Interesting. When she left to go look for Sebastian, I know that if you turn right going out of the Profit, you go up the top of the hill, it's a cul-de-sac, or you go around and you can go up your street all the way at the back where the construction is. Did she, before she ventured out of the neighborhood, did she go up those roads? Do you know of to look?
Did she go up my road?
Your road or her road itself to the top of the cul-de-sac?
Any road.
Where
the
her
only
road
thing
ends.
I was right. So the only thing I was told, of course, we nobody in my house was up or out yet, so I can't verify that because we weren't out yet. But the neighbor that told me that she saw her
SUV
drive across her driveway saw her leave.
Like
so
leave out of
that's right.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So
you would think that maybe you stay in the neighborhood a little bit and go up and down your own streets. Looking
well,
around.
that was when she went to the school thinking that he had walked to the school on his own, which I don't know why. He's never done that before. So why would he do that? I mean, like, why would he just walk to school by himself? Plus, he had no shoes on, supposedly. So, like, why would he walk to school by himself?
That's a good point.
So, but that's what I was told, that she actually walked around her house outside, didn't find him. So she got in her car and drove to the school.
And was back by 7. Around that time.
At least probably actually before that.
God, I used to have a 0 period that started at like 7:20, and I would show up with a loaf of bread and some jelly and peanut butter and jelly, and I would make sandwiches for me, me and my friends, which is probably why I ended up dropping that class because I was too busy making sandwiches.
Yeah. The Sebastian
Peanut butter and jelly in the morning is a hitter. Okay.
Did he take the bus to school, or did Katie take him in her car?
From what the neighbor, from what the neighbors, of course, I don't have kids that ride the bus anymore. But from what the neighbor nearby said, that he did ride the bus. Now, the neighbor on the corner that has a surveillance camera said that there is a special bus that comes for certain kids that have special needs and whatever. And she said, I don't think he gets on that bus. I think he gets on the other bus. So that was what I was told. I can't verify that, so I can't answer that appropriately.
Got you. So we're talking all law enforcement, all there, starting to descend onto the area, 8 a.m.-ish, right? 8 a.m.-ish. What?
Well, they were there before that. They were already there, and cars parked. By the time when my son went to work at 8, they were already there and already clumped up together and starting to talk because they were already in the front yard talking to them. So they were, I don't know exact. I mean, I would say probably it was even before. I mean, they were probably there. I'm trying to remember what she said when she got ready to leave. She never said anything. The neighbor that called me and told me about it never mentioned law enforcement being there. She just said that Katie was outside walking around, upset and everything. And she asked her, like, what's going on? But she didn't specify if there were law enforcement there, but they were already there and out of their cars and in the front yard at 8 o'clock. So they had to have been there before that.
Gotcha. Any idea when Seth got there?
No, but I do know that he was there by the time my kids went over there, like I said, which was about 8:30. He was already there. And I also know that his truck was there, like off and on the whole time.
Gotcha.
But I don't know what time exactly.
So what happens to, just explain to everybody then, what did law enforcement do at that point, like throughout the morning? Once they all arrived there, did more and more law enforcement come, or was there certain?
I told my neighbor down the street, I said, I didn't even know we had these agencies. I mean, like I've never in my life ever seen such a response. It was it was overwhelming. It was like, it kind of freaked me out. Like, oh my God, I feel like I'm living in a real life, like, drama crime scene. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. The very first that came out was the sheriff's department, because we live in the county. So sheriff's department respond first, because we're not part of the city. So they came out first, and they literally walked all up and down and around and everything. And then they came door to door, and asked everybody, who all had cameras and whatnot.
Vegemite is disgusting, and it's nothing it's nothing close compared to peanut butter.
Did you see? What do you know? Whatever. And then it was, now, of course, I'm having to really go back in my head. It's been a little while. It was later on that
Somebody snoring. Is that me? Who's snoring? Does anybody hear that? I know it's a staple there. I keep hearing sleep apnea. That's the word that keeps coming to mind.
Afternoon, they brought some dogs in, and they started walking around. They came around the houses and asked everybody to walk around their own property, look underneath stuff, in anything that's unlocked. So all of us up and down my street, everybody, my neighbors came out with me. She and I walked together, walked all up and down our yards, all across the street, up and through the cul-de-sac, down the street a little bit. There's a barbed wire fence behind us as of right now, where the new construction is, so you can't get over that, but we could walk around it.
All right, so what is it? A cat? Is it a dog? Or is it air conditioning?
And so we both,
or is it Phoebe from Australia?
Walked up and around that, just looked everywhere that was kind of close by, and then I noticed that they had the drones up. And of course, the news was short. That was Tuesday. The news came out and was flying the helicopter around. It was chaotic. It was absolutely chaotic.
Did you see Seth and Katie out there looking? No.
Not in our neighborhood. Never.
Never seen them walk around.
No. They were in their yard out, but never left their property. No. And I know for a fact, because so Monday my kids were out with law enforcement, because at that point it was, we need all the neighbors come out, help us, look everywhere, whatever. So they were open to everybody coming in and help. So at that point, my kids jumped into one of those razor things, and drove all up and through the property and stuff. And then my other one walked with the canine unit in the construction zone. He walked all the way through that. They literally, I had to call them at one point in time and tell them, y'all need to come home and have lunch. I mean, this is crazy. I know you want to help, but you got to come home and eat. And so then they came home, they ate.
I mean, that's a mom thing to say, through and through.
And then they went back out.
Home to eat.
They were out there with them all day Monday, all day Tuesday. And then, so Tuesday we had SWAT. That was the day we had the vigil. And it was interesting, because we put out a post on the neighborhood group that we're having a vigil, and everybody's invited, but we want it to be just the neighborhood only, because we want it to be a private vigil just for our neighborhood and for the family. We were hoping if we made it more personal like that the family would come and they wouldn't be overwhelmed with all this. That was the other thing. Good God, the traffic. The second that it got out, we had tons of people just driving up and down the street, just looking and watching. I'm like, I don't know what you're going to do to help. We're flooded already with police. I don't know what outsiders coming in are going to do. I mean, it was chaotic as it was anyway, and now you got all these extra people coming out there, so it just got so chaotic. But so Tuesday night we planned the vigil, went down there, got in a big circle, introducing everybody, and the there's neighbors. I don't want to get too personal here. There are neighbors. Actually, we have I think 2, maybe 3 sets of neighbors that are in law enforcement. They're in different counties. One of them is actually a part of Hendersonville Police, and then the other 2 are from other counties. They came to the.
Kathy, you ever met somebody from the South? They're the nicest, most talkative people you'll ever meet. You ever met somebody from New York?
Vigil. And matter of fact, the one that is part of Hendersonville has been in a neighborhood since almost the beginning. Know them very well, good people. And he was down there with a flashlight because we had so many people driving up and down and around and circling and going up and down and circling and coming back and forth. And we're just like, good grief. The Proudfoots sent, I don't know who it was, but they came down and we were all introducing ourselves, and they introduced themselves as aunt and uncle.
The Proudfoots?
Don't have a
aunt and uncle.
Proudfoots. Apparently, I don't know if it was somebody's brother, or that's what they introduced themselves as. We are. Maybe it was Sebastian's aunt and uncle.
That noise is.
Chris and
Maybe
Katie
that's what it was.
Chris and Katie said they were their aunt and uncle.
Well, it wasn't. Chris and Katie didn't come. They sent family members, and when they introduced themselves as we're aunts and uncles.
Why
so
didn't
I guess
Chris,
Sebastian's aunt and uncle.
Why didn't Chris? Did Seth go?
No.
So no Seth. No Seth. No Proudfoots. They basically sent their own representatives, family members that claim they ran.
That's correct. Yes.
I got 2 questions back on the first day. When do you know that Chris arrived home?
I did not, because I didn't know. I had never met them. They moved in and nobody knew them. Like, I still don't know anybody that really knows them. Like, nobody ever really knew them.
Yeah, but like those neighborhoods, I've seen the neighborhood, and those neighborhoods are pretty spaced out. Like 4 houses or 3 houses this way and 3 houses that way. After that, I'm probably not even gonna know who lives in those homes.
And so
I just recognize cars. That's it. Like, always go through the neighborhood.
When did they move in? Do you know?
I think, so apparently it was a year and a half ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they just stayed to themselves, and nobody really even knew them. I didn't even know that the original owners sold their house, and not because we don't, our neighborhood is just a real quiet neighborhood. Everybody kind of stays to themselves, except for, if you need something, or if a dog, a pet gets out, or if somebody goes on vacation, hey, will you watch my house, that kind of thing. But we don't really, unfortunately, I think everybody's just have busy lives and stuff, and we just don't know. I mean, like each neighbor knows the neighbor next to them. Like, I know all the neighbors around me, and I know a lot of their original neighbors that were there from day one, but I don't know the ones that have moved in over the past 5 years. And I think with COVID, that kind of messed everything up too.
Gotcha. Somebody put in the chat, what time does the trash get picked up in the morning?
Here we go.
That is the biggest misconception. Here we go with the whole light thing, right? This is where we're going. So
one more thing first. The very first day, the dogs. You saw dogs out there. You saw.
Oh yes,
did you
absolutely.
See them going a specific direction or area? Did you see them centered around a certain area, or did they pick up any scent?
Okay, so there was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere. However, and my kids were with the handler and the canine, and actually watched. He followed them all through the construction zone. And one of my kids actually saw one of the dogs take the handler to one of the retention ponds. And not only did he go to the retention pond, he ran to it and jumped in it. And the handler had to go and get him and take him out of the water and then dry him off. And my son looked over the handler and said, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that before." He looked at me and said, "He's never done that before." And my son said, "Why did he just jump in that?" He said he was following a scent.
I mean, I don't know much about dogs, like scent dogs, but I've never heard of that either. But I've also never heard of a lot of things. But that seems so weird. I don't get that. The retention pond has always been interesting. Um, Somebody said that it had been drained or something like that. That possibly there. That's the problem with all these kind of cases is that you're never going to get a real solid answer. I'm not denying what this lady says. I have no reason to dispute what she's saying to me, or not me, but Jonathan. But um, you know, yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one.
And then the other
on that, did they go in the water? Did they stake scuba divers or anything in there?
supposedly when I told Seth that when I met him at the most recent vigil, he said they drained the pond twice and nothing. But not only did I see that, but when on day 3, I think it was Wednesday, when National Guard came through and they had their dogs. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They were all up and down through the neighborhood. That's why when everybody said, the police aren't doing enough, I have some of my own personal thoughts about that, but I will tell you right now, we had we had the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, we had Hendersonville Police, we had state troopers, we had National Guard, we had drones, we had helicopters, we had canines, we had 2 sets of different canines, and the National Guard brought theirs. So we were flooded. Okay, so back to the whole dog.
Let's do the trash, because the trash is what everyone is like curious about. The time the trash picks up, and then in reference to the lights, we're going to talk about the 3 a.m., 3:10 a.m. lights. Let's talk about the trash.
Okay, before we go into the
So
trash,
our trash gets picked up by J.E. McMurtry Disposal. As for many.
All right, well, stop doing that, ma'am. Sorry. The dog did it for some reason, not just to jump in. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but the dog is one of the 25% that Chris thinks is accurate. So what? Only 25% of trail dogs or scent dogs are accurate? I mean, is that what is being said? Because if that's the case, and I don't think it is, I think that they would probably move on to try and find an animal that could do a little bit better than 25%. I've heard that they're up to 80 to 90% accurate, but that's just what I've heard. But 25% seems low. Absolutely ridiculously low. Yeah, I mean, they're probably closer to 100. I don't know if they are 100, but they're up there. They're pretty high, I think. Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, I understand. I know it's Chris's. Anyway, all right, trash time.
Many years. Trash gets picked up by J.E.
And for some reason, I still can't wrap my head around the whole landfill search. I mean, there's got to be something more to it than just oddly shaped heavy trash. I don't know if that's enough. Sebastian he was not like a tiny person.
McMurtry Disposal has for many years. They used to, a few years back, they would pick up around 6:30ish, but then the bus was coming through and it was making it hard for them to come through with the bus, and all the kids were out and it was just chaotic. So they switched it, and now they go down my street about 5:30, 5-ish, between 5:15ish, 5:20, something like that, every Monday morning. That's going down my hill, though. That's not when they come in and they're going around it. That's when they're coming back down. So yeah.
I mean, that's an extra, what, 20 minutes? How long does it take for the trash truck guy to go through the whole entire neighborhood?
And the other misconception is a lot of people are saying that they have to hand dump the trash bin in there. They don't. It's a new truck. They have an arm and it does it for them. So that was another thing where they're having to pick up these big. No, they're not. They have an arm. They roll it over to the arm.
I mean, you should see the trash truck that picks up. It's got one of those arms on it, and it's old as crap. I'm pretty sure. I know that people used to ride. This isn't a Bronx tale, you know. I don't think people are. I mean, it does in some neighborhoods, I guess, when the small towns they still do that, but I don't know how prevalent that is anymore, where people are jumping off the back of the rubbish wagon or whatever the freak they call it.
Arm connected to the arm, and they dump it. You can hear it. I mean, it's not quiet. It's loud. I mean, you hear the arm doing all that. So by the time they collect the trash coming up the street, though, not going down it. They're collecting it as they come up. So I guess they're probably in the neighborhood just like around 5, just before 5.
And they're out of there before the buses come.
Yes.
Or the bus come, or
Absolutely.
You said buses. Where's trash go?
Oh, it gets dumped in either Nashville or Gallatin. If Nashville is full, they'll temporarily dump it to Gallatin, and then once I guess Nashville gets finished, whatever, then they'll transport to Nashville. The big misconception was that the neighborhood behind us, they get picked up by a different company on Tuesdays. So that's a whole different thing.
Is that construction development you're talking about?
Well,
yeah. If this lady's like your getaway driver for your crime, and they pick her up, you're toast.
That was the dumpster that everybody was asking about. How is it possible that, whatever, that the dog hit over there as well? The second dog that was out walking hit also by the trash dumpster. And the trash dumpster owner found that out when law enforcement told him that we got a hit by the dumpster. The owner of the dumpster called them back and said, okay, we dumped our trash on this certain day, Tuesday, whatever, on that certain day in Kentucky. So you guys need to go and get a warrant, obviously. And he gave them permission to go search the Kentucky dumpster or landfill. So that's why they went to Kentucky. And then I was told that they also checked Gallatin and Nashville as well.
That night, Katie claims the night of the 25th that Sebastian takes the trash out after they arrived home from going out to dinner. Go ahead.
There's no specific footage of that. The neighbor that has the Ring door camera that saw that, she said to me on the phone that the only thing you can see is a silhouette. She said you cannot see a physical person. There is absolutely no physical proof of Sebastian being at their house that night after dinner. There's nothing.
So that's something that everybody must have been discussing. Probably a point of contention amongst people. No actual proof, no video proof between the neighbors in their little chit chat group, which is, I mean, we have one of those. It's like the neighborhood. It's kind of like a neighborhood watch thing that I was added to and that I completely ignore. Subsequently, my car got stolen, and there had been other attempted ones. So I should probably turn those notifications on.
Her car coming home. My neighbor did tell me that she saw her car come, but she parks in the garage. So nobody saw him get out of the car.
What time was that? I always want to know what time she arrived home. Do you know?
I asked, and she said that it was so dark that she couldn't really see. She saw about 6 or so, I think is what she said.
I agree.
Ish, because they went to dinner at Texas and then supposedly came home, and then her car came into the driveway around 6, and then somebody pulled the trash bin out, after that. But they don't know who it was because you can't tell.
Who is
so no evidence.
It's like Grand Central Station. What is going on her phone? She's a talker. She's a talker. She's a talker. God bless her, by the way. Thank you for doing this, ma'am. I mean, it's stand for the flag, baby. Proud to be an American where at least I know I'm free.
Any neighbor, including yourself or any, because you all talk, the neighbors talk to everybody and said there's nothing to indicate that he was home that night. He got home that night.
There's no proof of that. Nobody ever saw him come home, or really, I mean, I don't even know if anybody can say they saw him leave with her. I mean, no, I don't think anybody actually looked back that far. It was so chaotic at the very beginning. I think the police were so focused on a runaway teen that was what everybody was focused on. So when they first asked to look at their video cameras, I think everybody was checking actual of him walking out, but there's no proof of him physically walking out. And then it was, okay, are there any cars around there? And so going back to the whole light thing, I was told that there was an unidentified car sitting on my street facing the entrance somewhere around 3:30 or so, and then the flashlights
Wait,
were actually seen on the
so we've actually heard of this unidentified car, but she's confirming that there's a car parked out there at 3 a.m, an unidentified vehicle. UIV. In that neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood where everybody knows everybody's vehicle. If there's a strange vehicle out there, everybody's pretty aware of it. So somebody told her.
neighbor's camera sitting on my street facing the entrance somewhere around 3:30 or so, and then the flashlights were actually seen on the neighbor's camera, 2 separate flashlights walking in between the yards, which the trash truck does not do. They don't need to. All of the trash is at the curb. They have never ever gone. Matter of fact, when you sign up for services, they tell you in the email their rules and regulations. If your trash is not by the curb, they don't take it. Unless, you're an elderly person, you ask.
So she actually reads the email from the waste management place. You're right. She has all her notifications on. I love it.
Ask them if your trash is like in the front of your house, and you ask them, they'll come and get it like that, but they won't come around the back or in between houses. That's bull monarchy. That is not how that works.
No track. You don't believe that those 3:10 a.m. lights were around 3:10 after 3 a.m. were trash truck lights.
Not only do I not believe it, but the neighbor that has the actual footage swore up and down that there are 2 different circumstances. There was the car with the lights coming towards the car backed up on Kellen and left. And then about 2-ish hours, hour and a half, hour and 42 something, like she said, the time stamp on the video is not working. It is stuck. She said, but you can tell because it's pitch black dark in the middle of the night when the car comes down the street, turns onto Stafford, sits there for about 3 to 5 minutes. The flashlights are coming from 2 different directions in between the yards. They do whatever they're doing around the car. The car backs up Kellen and leaves from Stafford. Backs up Kellen and leaves. And then 2 or so hours later, as the sun is just beginning to come up, you can see the trash truck. And she said, but the trash truck goes past her driveway. She said, you can see the trash truck and the lights and the back of the truck go past her driveway, go up the hill, do its business, turn around, come back down. And then within a few minutes later, the sun is coming up. And then you can see Katie's car leave, Katie's car coming back. And then you can see all the police come in. She said, it's very obvious. So I asked her why the police are saying that that's trash truck. And she said, I don't know. I'm baffled. Because I tell you right now, there are 2 different circumstances, and that you can tell there are 2 different time frames.
Wow. Wow. Because we've heard from Seth Rogers, and Seth is adamant that he was told or he's seen.
That's because LE has told him that.
What's up with that?
Because LE has told him that. Law enforcement has told him that.
Why?
Because, that's the question I asked. When I called, I got I think all of us are just super frustrated as this continues to go on, that we don't understand what's happened. We don't know what's happened. You know, we've all been involved in trying to find him day one. We've spread it. We've shared it on social media. You know, a lot of us were out with law enforcement the first week or so, you know, looking for him and stuff. I mean, you know, this shook us up to the core. It flipped our neighborhood upside down and just shook us up. I mean, nobody left their house for 2 weeks. Even the families who walk their dogs every single day, we didn't see them for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Why?
So,
why?
yeah, I mean, we didn't know what was going on. We had no idea what happened. I mean, when you have a 15-year-old kid that just vanishes in thin air, nobody wants to leave. We're scared. And then, of course,
That's what I've always wondered too, is that now I think that I really do think that the thought was that he was a runaway at first. I don't remember how long it took them to get a Amber Alert out for Sebastian, but I think that they were operating under the assumption that he probably ran away at first. And I think with lack of either evidence or whatever, it probably took a different turn. So, but that's just me speculating.
Of course, you see Chris, you know, getting upset through all these YouTube videos. And if you know your neighbor is that upset and threatening people and saying the things he's saying, you're not going to go be a part of that. You're going to stay in your little cocoon and stay away from them. And I mean, lock your doors and be by yourself and protect yourself and just stay away from it.
You've never seen Sebastian Rogers in the neighborhood or walking around or anything prior to that day? Nothing.
From what I understand from neighbors that live right close to him, the only time they ever saw him come out was when he was playing with the dogs. The dogs would get out, and you know, he'd be out there for a little while, but nobody ever really knew him.
Nobody knew any of them.
He never came out to play with neighborhood kids. You never saw him out riding his bike. I mean, now I'll tell you this. I mean, we have neighbors that go out, like I said, and walk their dogs every single day, sometimes even twice a day. You have kids that will go out and play basketball. We have a basketball goal in one of the cul-de-sacs. Kids will come up and play basketball in the basketball goal. They'll walk, you know, ride their bike. We have one kid that has a four-wheeler and a dirt bike, and he rides around, that kind of thing. Didn't even know Sebastian existed. Never played with anybody.
No friends, nothing.
Never had any friends over their house.
How long was, because I heard that Seth was there for a few days staying with the Proudfoots. Did you hear that?
I did. True? Well, I saw his, I didn't know he was staying in their house, but I saw his truck there every single day for, when I heard that he had stayed in their house for 3 days, I was shocked. I didn't realize he had actually stayed in the house and then they said 3 days. I'm like, well, that's odd, because his truck was parked on the curb of the street for about a week. But I didn't know he was actually there, because he was out searching. Like, he was actually at the command center for the first week every day, all day long. Seth was.
Not Chris and Katie. Chris and Katie?
Oh, no. They never left their house.
Never
Not that I'm aware of.
With any flyers, go to door, you know, to speak with neighbors, ask them if they've seen anything, nothing.
No.
Wow.
Nope. I mean,
that is so Miss Bobby.
To be fair, I mean, she wouldn't necessarily know completely all the time, right? But I'm sure that's something that people do take notice of, or you know, they go, well, did this were they down there to do this or what?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the only thing that they even put on Facebook was that one post,
which eventually got deleted.
Theirs didn't. The original neighbor that was asking, hey, what's all the commotion on Stafford? That person deleted their post.
Gotcha.
Katie's is still up there.
Were the Bauer socks around at all during that week? Yeah, I know you said that they were there that morning. Did they look around? Did they look around?
No, we never saw anybody. None of them ever looked in our neighborhood where I'm at. I never seen any of them walking around at all, period, ever. Seth, Chris, Katie, Bauer Sox, none of them ever. I never even met them. I had one encounter with Chris one night. And after, I never saw him, never met him, nothing.
Did Chris encounter you? You mind sharing? I think we talked about this offline a little bit.
Yes, okay, so I'll kind of share a little bit of that. This was what day was it? Thursday, I think it was. I think it was Thursday, that Thursday night. Now, mind you, our neighborhood is on pins and needles. Don't know what happened to this kid. Don't understand. Law enforcement's, coming up and around. We've got every department that I didn't even know existed. Like I said, I didn't even know we had a SWAT team. I didn't know we had, drone footage. I didn't know we had any of this stuff. I mean, we're, a small county. I no idea. Not a small county, but you know what I mean? Like, we're away from like the big crowd, the city. Never had any issues. So I didn't even know that any of this stuff has existed. So we're all kind of on pins and needles. And so anything weird, let me go back a little bit and say the night before this is the reason why this happened. The night before this, I had went to work that night, I think. I did something. I wasn't home for.
Oh, look, maybe it's me and maybe I have, I don't know, some sort of hang up, but I have a really, really difficult time thinking that you can get anybody inside or out of a house without alerting anybody else in the house, especially if they're dogs. I don't know their dogs, what their dogs do or bark or whatever. I just can't get past a walkout situation. It's a struggle for me to think that the only way that you can control what's going on inside of the house is that if that's your natural environment, if you can keep things quiet, if you can manipulate cameras, if you can, but I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying I have a problem getting past that. That's just me. Like I said, I don't know.
For some reason, my son was on our back deck. Now, our back deck faces the construction, the top,
Gotcha.
the back of the construction. And so he was on the back deck talking to somebody, and he looks out and he says, well, that's really weird. And she said, what? And he said, look at the light out there. And there was a flashlight. It was kind of a dim flashlight, but you could see it because it's pitch black dark. And he said, why is there a flashlight over there? It was one single flashlight, and it was like walking in the back, kind of over in the back of the woods area. And it like walked around, stopped, walked around a little bit, stopped, and then just disappeared in the back of the woods. And so he called me and he's like, what do I do? And I said, you need to call law enforcement. Like, call the number. We had a flyer, one of those flyers. And I was like, you need to call the TBI and tell them and figure out what to do with that. He did. And nothing. No phone call back. No, nothing. Just, okay, thanks for the letter. I'm like, okay, that's awfully weird. I mean, you would think that they would come check that out or call you back and ask you.
Yeah, follow-ups.
Nothing. No, they didn't even call him back to ask him, like, exactly where are you? What did you see? Nothing. Nobody ever followed up or nothing. And so
my daughter snuck out at night once. She went out the sliders and we heard nothing. She left a lot of clues though. But how long, and in all honesty, I'm just asking, how long did it take you to figure out that she had left? And how long did it take her to come back or for you to make contact with her? That's the difference. You know, a lot of people say, Mikey, I'm not picking on you. I appreciate your comment, but a lot of people say, well, my, you know, my, person did this or my person did that, or, you know, I hear a lot of during like the Karen Reed trial, I know a lot of people say, well, I've left messages like that on my ex's phone and I didn't kill, or that doesn't mean I did anything to them. But the difference is that something did happen to John. Something did happen. Sebastian hasn't been seen. You know what I mean? So like there's an actual difference. I get it that there are people that say, well, you know what? Like I snuck out, but you were found or you came home. Because she's a busybody and being snoopy, had no business stalking their house. If she was that concerned about the strange people or anything, why not call Ellie? I don't believe he called Ellie. You mean she? What does that mean? Because she's a busybody and being snoopy. That's not nice.
He was like, that's really,
I mean, you would be curious if a child disappeared from your neighborhood, especially when you have children. I wouldn't call that being a busybody.
weird. And I was like, yeah, that is weird. I mean, with a missing kid, you would think they would be coming flying up here to figure out who that was. So it was the following night. So now, of course, we're all like, you know, even more in pins and needles. Like, is people just going to just start walking around a neighborhood in the middle of the night like they're pitch black dark in the night? And so he was coming home. We were all at home and still looking around and talking to neighbors and figuring out like what the heck is going on. And he comes home and walks in the door and is like, Mom, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, now what? And he said, there's two people, a real tall, skinny guy and a real small, it looks like a girl maybe, that is walking up our street. Now, we do have families that will come out and walk their dogs at night before they go to bed, but they had no dog with them, no nothing. And the strangest part about this was this guy was wearing dark black, wide, like ski goggles. You've been in my neighborhood. It is, you can't see your hand in front of your face. It is so dark at night. It was
Scary.
9 o'clock at night. Why is somebody walking with these big black goggles? How can they even see? Well, with everything going on, I'm thinking, okay, that's very suspicious. I got to check on that. Yes, I could have called law enforcement, and that's what was said. You should have called law enforcement. However, I didn't want to call law enforcement on my own neighbor. If it was a neighbor out walking around, I didn't want to be rude and call law enforcement on my neighbor. So I told my son, I said, you know what, let's go. He's got a Jeep that's got a bunch of lights on it. And I said, let's drive down there and turn your lights on and see if you can see somebody out there walking. I said, I'll call law enforcement and let them know what we're seeing, and then we'll just turn around and go back home. I wasn't going to follow them. I just wanted to see if I could find them. So we're driving down my road. We turn up Stafford because we couldn't find them. Like, well, maybe they went up Stafford. We went up Stafford. Now my son's Jeep is loud. And so but I didn't even think about it. I was more focused on who this person was. So
Dude, we got some busy bodies in my neighborhood, no question. But I don't mind them. I'm not doing anything not bothering me.
he drives up Stafford and he says to me, hey, while we're up here, where's Sebastian's house? And I'm like, oh, we just passed it. So he turns around and goes back down, and we're going slowly because I was trying to point out Sebastian's house. And so I pointed it out, and he's like, oh, okay. And so we drive back around and we're driving back down to the other side of the neighborhood. There's another
Deed says that right there explains how he could have been missed by cameras. Yeah, maybe initially. But after a few days of him being on the old dusty trail, nobody seen him, even checking cameras, you know, miles away. I'm sure that they meticulously, well, I say I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I would assume that they would go meticulously through cameras on any route that they think that he could have gone, maybe.
For a second, he said, "Wait a minute. Didn't you say that this other neighbor has a Ring camera?" And I said, "Yes." And she's the one that saw the silhouette in the window and the lights in the house go on and off and whatever. She's like, "But that doesn't make any sense, because if that house is located here, how can she have seen over here?" And I'm like, "Okay, go back up the street and I'll show you." So we went back up the street to show him where that house was versus this and all the whole thing. And as we were coming back up, we kind of stopped. Now, this is my neighborhood. I'm not a suspicious person. This is my neighborhood. I should be able to do whatever I want to, right? So I stop, or he stops a little bit. I'm pointing at our houses out, and we drive out. And I said, "Sean," I said, "honey, we got to go home." And he's like, "Why?" And I said, "Because somebody's standing at their front door." He was like, "Oh crap." And so, and I did not, God honest truth, I never meant to upset anybody. It was truly just me trying to figure out what's going on. Never meant to upset anybody. Turn around, Stafford. I'm coming back down, and Chris is now, mind you, I've never met this man, never seen him before. I wouldn't even know who he is. Matter of fact, I thought he was law enforcement. Stands in the middle of the street and puts his hand out and stops, just like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And I'm thinking it's law enforcement. I'm like, oh crap, we're about to get in trouble because they're going to think that we're looking for this kid or something. So roll down the window, and he comes around and he stands there just like this. Just like, "What are you doing out here?" And I'm like, holy crap. I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We were looking for," and I told him what happened and told him the whole story. And he was like, "Why wouldn't you just call law enforcement?" I said, "Because I don't want to call law enforcement on a neighbor if they're out walking around. That's kind of rude." And he's like, "Well, you have no business driving around here," and started telling me in a very intimidating, very strong voice, I guess you would say, big tough, he's a big guy, kind of thing. That my son is missing, and they've got police all around here looking." I said, "Yeah, no kidding. I know. I'm aware. I've been talking to him. Trust me. I know. I get it." And then he said, there's a police. What do you, the heat sensor mobile unit things, I'm talking about, that can detect heat sensor and stuff. Well, they had one of those up in the top, hoping that if he came home, it would alert law enforcement that there was somebody walking around. Which I don't get that, because you've got families that are walking dogs anyway. Anyway, so I was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I kept apologizing to him, and he got really upset and, kind of said some things. And I was trying to calm him down, and I apologized. And my son's girlfriend was in the
All right. So this is, and I would say I've heard this about Chris repeatedly. I've witnessed it like most people have. I don't know. I don't think, to me, I don't think that that makes him suspicious. But I think I don't think he's I just don't think he's a very pleasant person sometimes.
back, and she thought that if she rolled the window down and said, "I am such and such, and I go to your son's school," that he would calm down. Even though I said, "Hey, I'm your neighbor. I live up there. Everything's fine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you." I thought even me telling him I was his neighbor would calm him down. It's like he just glossed right over that. He didn't.
I'm your neighbor. I don't care. I am confused. A child is missing. You see a strange person walking with goggles, and you don't call Ellie. Yes, should have called Ellie. Absolutely.
Care. So she says, "I'm such and such, and I go to school with your son." And he stops mid sentence to me and said, "Oh," and got like stopped, looked at her and said, "Your name?" And she said, "Yes, sir." Like, "How do you know?" She only gave him her first name, and he said the whole thing. And she was like, "How do you know my name?" And I was like, "What the crap?" I looked at my son. I said, "We need to go. We just need to go. We just need to go." And I'm like, "I'm going to call the police, because this is getting, I don't know. I don't understand. I wish you could have, I can't describe his body language was just very
It wasn't
stern.
hopeful for that people were out there looking for his son, or thinking it was more like trying to stop.
Get off my street. Get off my street. Get out of here. Get off my street. Go home. Leave me alone. Get away from us. But he told her that, so you're the girl that runs this Facebook group and this, that, the other. I'm going to demand you take that off. You get your phone. And he said, where are your parents? And she said, at my house. And he said, well,
Yes,
I'm going to find out where you live, and I'm going to.
I'd probably be pleasant. Probably. I would welcome the company.
Come knock on their door, and we're going to have a conversation. And she said, okay, good luck with that. And I was like, you know what? Look, we don't want to, cause any issues and whatever. I try to give him grace. Don't know the man from nowhere. And I just kept saying, he's upset. His son's missing. He's really upset. He's very defensive.
No.
Maybe that's just all that what it was. Now that I've seen some of his YouTube videos, and I'm like, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know the back end of
No, I mean, look, I've had, unless there's like 10 different people that have contacted me telling me stories from the past about him, and I talked about one time. None of them mattered to the case, other than him having a volatile temper. But there are a lot of people that do. So it's not just this situation where he has been rude or unpleasant or whatever. But once again, I'm not condemning the man for that. I mean, there are just some people that are not pleasant humans. That's a fact.
Those details.
You know what? And maybe in a different setting, maybe he's a regular Don Rickles.
I know we talked before offline a little bit, and you said, kind of like a confrontation kind of deal. We confronted you guys, but I didn't know those like back end details that you shared. Somebody in the chat, Smiley's World, was asking, prior to the February 26th, right, when Chris arrived home, did any neighbors or anyone that you heard, whether you see it, but you said you never knew him prior, did anyone ever say anything about him being around the house on the 25th, the 24th, or seen in the neighborhood or anywhere in the area prior to the?
No, nobody's ever really mentioned him. The only person that's ever said anything about him coming home, like I said, nobody really ever paid attention, I don't think, because even the neighbor that lives close by that I'm friends with, I asked her, like, did you ever see? She said, I never really paid attention, because like he would come and go, and they never were out really, and they had this camper, and the camper would leave, and then it would come back, and then he never came outside. And it's odd because Chris kept saying that he would go outside and play, and all that kind of stuff. And she's like, I don't
look, Mama, we're obviously not going to agree on this, and I'll just tell you this first and foremost. My first step would not be aggression. I don't care what happened. It wouldn't be aggression, but I would ask, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? What are you doing? Are you need help with something? We got a lot going on in the neighborhood at the moment, but I wouldn't be like, stop. What are you doing? I mean, it's a public road. So would I be unpleasant? Probably not, but I probably wouldn't be overly welcoming, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I've never been in this situation. I just know what I've heard and seen and experienced. And I've came to the conclusion, just because he's that way doesn't mean anything other than him being that way. I'm not condemning the man for having an attitude with people.
Seeing him really outside playing. Like, there's no playground. They don't have a playground outside. They don't have a trampoline outside. Like, if you looked at their yard, you wouldn't even know. There's no bike. There's no like scooters. There's no basketballs. You wouldn't even know they have kids. There's nothing in their yard to play with. He's never outside. Like, he didn't go outside and play catch with his dad. Nothing.
Interesting. Now, as you said, pitch black in the neighborhood. Do you buy it where they're claiming that this kid walked out the front door and kind of that neighborhood?
No. Because everybody around the camera.
Would a kid go out at night and walk around out there at night alone?
I don't think so. I mean, unless their parents didn't. Now, we did have a ding dong ditch happen a couple years ago, but no. I mean, I've never experienced kids just randomly walking around the neighborhood. That's the thing about our neighborhood is it's so quiet. Like at night, literally, like in the summertime when my kids were younger. Sorry, my car shut off for me for something. My kids were younger, they would go outside and play like flashlight tag and
I
stuff
don't
like
know.
that. And I'd have to get on to them like, okay, 10 o'clock,
Doesn't
y'all
seem
need to be done because everybody's got to go to bed and whatever. Nobody ever gets like,
I
you
think
don't
he
ever
gets
just
pissed.
see random kids walking around by themselves. I don't buy that at all. And I know that neighbors that are right around them said that there was nothing on their cameras.
Nothing. So no evidence whatsoever for that morning,
No.
26, and not even the 25th, the night of the 25th. Wow. Do you think law enforcement,
He just vanished. He literally just vanished.
And I do
What's
not.
your theory?
First of all, I
What do you
do
think?
not think that this. I don't think that this lady's lying. I don't think that she's making stuff up. I mean, I haven't heard the whole interview, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
What do you think happened? What's your theory? Based off you being a neighbor, based off you speaking to other neighbors, you're very close to the area, you've seen law enforcement over there. What do you think happened?
I have to be very careful with that one.
Yeah, and you really do. She lives in this neighborhood. I mean, it's a really loaded question. I know that the soundbite would be nice for her to say, I think that that Chris and Katie are responsible for this, or yada 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 yada. And so you do got to be careful with that because she doesn't have any evidence either. But now that she's interacted with him, and a lot of people would take his aggressiveness and take his attitude or disposition. By the way, I've met people like Chris Proudfoot that kind of had that, and they're genuinely a nice person until they're not, until something pisses them off, that they go, they're fine. And then they're really upset. And a lot of them are just all talk or whatever it is that you want to call it.
I know there were some family issues, like there were some personal stuff going on within the family between Katie and Chris. Seth told us, that he was supposed to get full custody. One minute he says that Katie was okay with it. The next minute I'm hearing that Katie was not okay with it. I don't know their personal story. I know that neighbors are close by them heard fighting within their family outside, verbal things that were said outside. So I don't know that it was, I think there were some struggles within the family. I mean, every family has issues. I get that, but I don't know. Families typically would get into that kind of a dispute outside. I mean, if I was going to have a conflict of interest between my kids and I, or my husband and I, we would be inside. I wouldn't be outside making that known. And apparently there were some situations where things were heard that weren't good.
Bobby, when did those fights occur? Do you know?
Women over the past, I mean, I guess since they've been there, but periodically, it wasn't like a one-time thing. There were other, times where things were said and that kind of thing. I don't live close enough to them to have heard that. I mean, they would have to have screamed at each other for me to have heard that. I didn't hear it, but I know that neighbors around them have reported hearing
I
things that
don't,
were.
Dynamite. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I'm sure that a lot of her information is secondhand. But I mean, she's not she has firsthand knowledge of interacting with Chris, and she was in the neighborhood when Sebastian went missing. She has talked to other people that live in the neighborhood. So it's not like she's just showing up out of the complete blue, has zero idea of what she's talking about. She's not casting aspersions, and she's not saying that they're guilty of anything from what I've heard yet. So yeah, and that exactly, and that lends more to her credibility than her detriment. She's not saying things are 100% fact. She's giving an interview of what she thinks.
Were said outside, and it wasn't like a one-time thing.
Any cops ever get called?
Well, I mean, CPS was called multiple times, and I know teachers personally that still work at Beach that were told things and they had to report it. I mean, when a teacher is told, counselors and
As if your kid was from 267 became authority on you. I don't see it that way. I don't see her being the authority. I'm not picking up that same vibe. The authority. I mean, she's just
teachers are
whatever.
told things.
I don't see it that way.
They by law have to report it. And I know that absolutely. And I know that, kids can be over exaggerating. I know that, especially teenagers, that kind of thing. I think for me, I think my kids would be respectful enough with us that if something happened, I don't think they would go and say like, my mom is mean to me. Like they know that's not true, and they would get in trouble for lying. So for him to make up that things that he was saying, I can't imagine him making certain things that were set up enough for CPS to be called on them. And I know they were called multiple times.
Multiple.
What value is it though? Well, I mean, the trash situation seemed, like she had some intimate knowledge of the trash. She had some intimate knowledge of the trash. I mean, I don't know. It's just this is the neighborhood gossip. This kind of ground zero. You get what I'm saying?
Multiple times. So when you say multiple, how many times?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm not privy to that information.
Has any neighbors or anybody tell you that they've seen the CPS at their house? Like,
I don't know. They have not actually used the words "I've seen them at the house," but they've told me that there have been people that have visited an official. Like, I don't know. Like, the car that comes is not going to have CPS written on it. Yeah. I mean, it may have a government official like license plate or something like that. And they're not going to have they're going to have a badge on them as they go to the front door, but it's not going to be something that a neighbor is going to see. That kind of thing.
I mean, this is why I hate doing this kind of stuff. Seriously. I've been nothing but impartial this whole time. Just listening to her, blah, blah, blah. I get it. She's a snoop. She's a busybody. She's a gossiper. She's whatever. I mean, you don't have to watch. If you don't like it, then don't listen to her. I'm just listening. I've never heard it before.
So I don't know, like neighbors haven't said like I have seen this happen because they were really paying attention. I don't think it was one of those things where I don't think neighbors after this has happened, some of the neighbors have gone back and saying, wait a minute, I remember this and I do remember that and I do remember this and oh wow, this is like all connected. But when it happens over a year period of time and it's just random, but then nothing really ever comes of it, you just kind of try to stay in your own lane and mind your own business because you're not hearing, like, I don't know that neighbors heard screaming or like, I don't know that it was like the things that were being said outside were loud enough to make neighbors call. I don't think it was that kind of like, if a neighbor next to me, I heard a kid screaming, help me, don't, whatever, I would be calling the police. Like, okay, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to call the police and be anonymous. It wasn't that kind of a thing. It was things that were said and arguments between them that made neighbors think, gosh,
Well, when you say that, are we talking Chris and Katie, or is Seth in the picture too? Is it like, were there arguments with Seth there?
I don't think Seth was ever there long enough. I think he was there long enough to pick Sebastian up for his weekend, or they would meet somewhere for his weekend or something like that. I don't think that Seth was ever there. I think it was mostly the one neighbor told me that she heard, and I'm not going to go into a lot of whole big detail because I don't want to get into their whole personal life. It's not my place. But a neighbor had told me that there were things that were said between, like, Chris and Katie would get into an argument, like in the driveway, and then Sebastian might come outside and Chris would raise his voice at him, either get inside or what are you doing out here, or make comments to him like that.
Again, I'm not even going to disagree with you that like this kind of stuff means nothing.
And like I said, it wasn't like I'm going to kill you or I'm going to beat your butt. It wasn't like such a horrible thing to make a neighbor call 911. It was just a very like abrasive enough to, now that he's missing, they go back and think, oh,
So that's kind of like, that was the kind of what you were saying when the neighbors kind of put these pieces together after the fact.
Right. It's one of those things that you go back and look and think, oh, okay, so maybe there was something to that. I just didn't realize it.
Have you ever heard anything about the mattress in the garage?
I have, and I have not been able to confirm that. I did hear that, and the neighbor next to them, when the garage door would come up for her to leave, they saw a mattress in the garage. And well, I mean,
all right, disclaimer. The stuff that we are listening to may or may not have factual information, may or may not be gossip, may or may not be truthful, may or may not be helpful. It's an interview, okay? I don't know. I can't tell. I really can't tell. That's why I'm listening.
I mean, Chris admitted that there was a mattress in there. Now, he said it was for his daughter, so maybe, but why is it still in there? I don't know. No idea.
Yeah, they said on Nancy Grace that they got a new bed set after Sebastian missing. But then people are also that punishment. Did you? And I'm
That's
talking
about too.
Punishment aspect about Sebastian sleeping in the garage for punishment. Have you heard that?
I did hear that, but I can't confirm it because I have not talked to the neighbors that live next to them that were the.
She can't confirm it. Oh my God, what an absolute gossiper. You can't stand it. How dare you not be able to confirm this, ma'am?
The ones that said that. I don't know for a fact they said that, but my thing is, and again, I'm not trying to put anything blame on them at all because I don't know them, don't know anything about their personal story, have no idea. I can't confirm any of this, but I just know that I'm surprised that the mattress has been in the garage that long. I mean, if the mattress is for your child, wouldn't it have been put away or put in the? I mean, why is it still in the garage and not in the child's bedroom? And two, the daughter Faith, I don't ever remember her being there. Like, if she was there, I mean, maybe one summer. I mean, I'm just surprised that she would have a brand new mattress if she's not there very much. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she didn't even have a mattress, and that's the first one.
You spoke earlier about a silhouette and a light inside.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. Some people were asking that in the chat. What's that all about?
Okay, so if I go back to day one and kind of rehash a little bit, trying to make this as short as possible, the neighbor close by that saw Katie out front on the way to taking her kids to school, she was the one that called me. Friends, I'm good friends with her. She's the one that actually called me and told me what was going on. And said that I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I went and asked Katie what happened. And she said, and this is where the story gets totally misconstrued. I don't know. Again, third party, I'm hearing this from another third party source. So, I trust this lady. She's a good friend of mine. There's no reason why she would lie. But she said, Katie, they had gotten home from Texas Roadhouse, took the trash out, so on and so forth. Sebastian was in his room. She was in the kitchen, I guess, getting, whatever done. And from her house, she's close enough to where she can see from the Ring camera, like the lights inside, because it's dark. So, I mean, if you have lights on, you can see it. And so she said that she could see the lights in the house around 10 or so. Then Katie told her that Sebastian was in her room. She was in the kitchen. She said, "You need to go to bed." And he said, "Okay." And she goes in the living room and does whatever. Watches.
I don't know how many of you know about the Dale Warner case. Dale Warner is now getting ready to stand trial for the murder of his wife. The neighbor across the street, or cattywampus, catty corner, whatever you want to call it, had very valuable information. The valuable information was that the lights in their house were on. This is D. Warner's case. The lights in the house were on all night. All night. And then the cop said, "Well, are they usually on all night?" And he said, "No. No."
The TV. She says she was studying. I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. She was in the living room for whatever reason. And suppose
Yeah, my
she
chat's
told my
wild.
neighbor that she fell asleep and
Say that again. You broke up. Say it again. You broke up.
She this thunk, and she yelled across the house and said, "Sebastian." And he said, "Yes, mom." And she said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm good. Go to bed." And she said, "Okay." So she gets up, and my neighbor said you can actually see his light go off, her walking across the house, her light go off, and then a silhouette come up to the window for a minute. And then everything just goes black.
What time was that again? Because you cut out.
I'm sorry. I know my son was calling me. Okay, so she woke up around 11:30 is what she told my neighbor, that she woke up about 11:30, and apparently he was still up. But I find it odd because my thought is, and again, none of my business. I just think, okay, put yourself in that position. If I have a child who's got special needs and I hear a thump, I'm going to walk into my child. No, let me put it this way. My kids are all very healthy and normal. I'm very blessed to have very healthy kids. But if it's 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night and my kid has to be up at 6 the next morning, I'm going to be in their room yelling at them and taking their electronics away and telling them, "Go to bed now." That I would be walking in my kid's room. Even where my kids are now, healthy and average children, whatever, no problems. If I heard a thunk, I'm probably still going to go in their room and ask,
Donna just not dropping it.
like, what in the world was that? I wouldn't just stay. But hey, maybe she trusts him. Maybe she thought it was no big deal. I don't know. Whatever.
So Donna,
But
do you think that everything that this lady's saying is she just made it up, like, or that she has no business talking about it? Is that your deal?
that's what she told my neighbor, and then she goes to bed.
11:30 though. That information is not really out there. We keep hearing 10 p.m. kind of deal. Put them to bed. Hear the thump. Are you okay? Good night. 10 p.m.
Right.
But this is what she told a neighbor.
That's right. That's right. And when I asked my neighbor, so she told me this Monday. And then when the sheriff's office came by our house to do the same door knocking thing and walking around and whatever, I asked the sheriff, I said, "Let me ask you a question." And he's like, "What's that?" And I said, "I know early on investigation, they actually were talking to us. Like day 1 and 2, they were talking to us. So they were giving us information. They were telling us kind of what they were going to do and whatever. And then after about a week of it, they just shut down and never would talk again. The day that the TBI came in, that was it. No more discussion. It's shut down. We're not talking about it. You're just going to have to be in the dark." So, but this day 2, when the sheriff's office came in, no, I'm sorry, the state troopers came in. Still don't know why
I
state troopers
heard
got
about
there.
them.
Haven't figured that one out yet. I don't know why state troopers would be there. But state troopers came in. Actually, they came into my driveway because they were rinsing their shoes off. They had gone in.
Okay, so she heard from her son, which is, I get it, secondhand, whatever. She had some information from a private Facebook neighborhood watch group that she was in. she had an interaction with Chris and the goggle guy. She cleared up some of the trash. I wouldn't say rumors, but the speculation. I'm trying to think what else.
To the construction area, and his boots were all muddy. And so he and my son were rinsing his shoes off. And I looked at him and I said, "Let me ask you a question." I said, he's like, "What's that?" And I said, if you'd fallen asleep in the living room and your kid walks out the front door, wouldn't you have heard that?" And he was like, "Not only would I have heard that, but I would have jumped up with my gun in my hand to figure out who's coming in my house."
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like, she falls asleep on the couch and her kid just walks at the door. But then when I asked my neighbor about that again, called her the next day, I'm like, "Okay, explain this to me. This is what you said. I don't understand that." And she said, "Oh, well, she woke up and then heard the thump and that kind of thing." So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it goes with all that in the evening time. At the same time, like you said, no evidence that any neighbors or anyone seen that he actually returned home that day. And then we also have that those lights. It's just a mystery in a sense, because those mysteries. Someone asked him, go ahead.
I'm just going to say those were not trash trucks.
I concur. But why did authorities say it doesn't have any evidentiary value?
I asked that when I called the lead detective, and I flat out told him that I know
Yeah, but
the
that's just
neighbor.
your opinion.
I've seen the video footage from the very beginning.
If she can't confirm, she shouldn't spread it. Well, I mean, but the thing is, what exactly has she said that's so damning towards them? You know what I'm saying? Like, what has she said that would indicate that they're guilty of something?
Before it was edited, she told me with her own mouth, looking at it herself, there are two separate occasions, car, then truck. Why is that? We've had it. He argued with me and told me that he had it broken down. The Secret Service looked at it and they confirmed that in fact it was a trash truck. And I said, "I'm telling you, it was not." He said, "Well, I'm not going to say and argue with you." I was like, "Okay."
Wow. Somebody said in the chat, any video footage of Katie searching for Sebastian that morning? Like,
had it, he edited. She told me with her, I've seen the video footage from the very beginning. I asked that when I called the lead detective, and I flat out told him that I know the neighbor. I've seen the video footage from the very beginning before it was edited. She told me with her own mouth, looking at it herself, there are two separate occasions, car, then truck. Why is that? We've had it. He argued with me and told me that he had it broken down. The Secret Service looked at it and they confirmed that in fact it was a trash truck. And I said, "I'm telling you, it was not." He said, "Well, I'm not going to say and argue with you." I was like, "Okay."
wow. Somebody said in the chat, any video footage of Katie searching for Sebastian that morning? Like, do they have any, since you have a neighbor that has a Ring camera, did any cameras pick up Katie actually out there searching that morning before?
If she, oh, you mean before all the police got there?
Yeah.
So the neighbor that was leaving to go take her, well, actually the neighbor's camera did pick up her walking around her house.
Really? So she walked around her house?
Yeah, because in the neighbor, if you're looking to her house, the neighbor to the left of them.
To be fair to Katie, especially once law enforcement, search parties, National Guard show up, I mean, she's probably best served at home at the time. How long that goes on, I don't know, but I can understand that.
The wife came out and was actually looking, there's like a little, like a wood door underneath the house. What do you call that underneath the house? The crawl space. They actually opened up that door and were looking in the crawl space together. And so they were looking, but as far as outside of the neighborhood, I've never seen them. And they've never, no, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I asked my kids, and my kids said they had never seen her, never seen him. They did see Seth was out there a couple of times with everybody. He was at the command post. I have a good friend that was there in the command post, and she confirmed that he was at the command post. But I asked her, I said, did you see Katie or Chris or the Bowerstocks? And she said, no, never saw any of them. But then again, she said, but I mean, law enforcement did ask them to stay home in case he came home or called. So there's that.
So in this scenario, let's just put it, okay, so if you have a neighbor across the street or down the street, their child goes missing and it's been however long, there's no evidence of anything, there's no sign of the child, there's nothing, you would probably you would probably want to go, what's going on there? Oh, that's just, I mean, that's what I would think. I don't know.
Do you think law enforcement exhausted the whole area? Like, do you think they did a thorough search of the entire neighborhood and the streets along Long Hollow Pike and the school? Do you think they?
Oh yeah. I definitely. I mean, I watched it with my own eyes. They were deep in. They were climbing in the trenches and looking in the sewage areas. And then they had dogs everywhere. They had drones everywhere. The question is, what are they doing with whatever evidence they collected, and what are they doing with the surveillance cameras? Because what I'm told that neighbors saw, they're denying.
They're denying.
Yes.
Why? Why is that?
Exactly. I don't know. That was what I asked. I have no idea.
See,
I don't understand.
What I find interesting, Miss Bobby, is, I was up there, a week and a half later, and then we were searching on that federal property, and there was a dog hit, and law enforcement didn't even go out there to look at all. It's as if they didn't even care that there could be. I would think that they would look. It seems like they've already made up their mind or have a conclusion of what happened to Sebastian.
That is exactly how I have felt since the first week. Literally the first week, within a day. I mean, and a lot of people would get on Facebook and belittle our neighborhood and yell at us like, why aren't you guys out looking? And why aren't you guys have signs? And why don't you have, if I was in that neighborhood, I would flood it with green. And yeah, but you haven't been violated, and you were a part of this where you had hundreds of cars a day driving up and down and taking videos and pictures of your house and stopping and asking you questions, and the news reporters being out front of your house, and you don't understand where we are, and we just want to just have some peace and some privacy. We are looking, we're out there, we're asking questions, we're talking to each other, we're on social media, we hang out flyers, whatever. We're just not, why do we need a sign when we're in the neighborhood? I mean, we live here, for heaven's sakes. Why do we need a sign? I mean, we know what's going on. If you drive through here, this neighborhood belongs to him. Why do we need a sign to say, look for him? But anyway, I feel like from the very beginning, it was a massive search effort. But I just don't understand what they did with, if they found anything, what they did with it. Why are they trying to act like the footage, did they find anything on the footage? From what I'm being told from my neighbors that saw stuff on the footage, and I asked them and they want to deny it, they want to argue with me. Why are they? And then when the TBI came and actually walked into my house, sitting in my living room couch, and interviewed me, and I told them what I had heard and whatever. And then after that, he gave me his card and said, oh, and I promise you, I had 12 people every day for about 3 weeks from random places. I'm talking Canada, I'm talking UK, I'm talking Hawaii, Puerto Rico. They were trying to get into our private group. Why do you need to be in our private group? Why do you need to be in our neighborhood group?
Gotcha.
Just wanting to know stuff? I don't know. But I mean, we had just they were coming out of the woodworks trying to get a piece of the information. But they just shut down. And every time I would send the TBI agent, I sent him the story about what happened to my son and I, and said I had it on, video, whatever. And I said, do you want to see this? And, he didn't even respond to me. He didn't even respond and say, I will let you know, hold on to that. Nothing. I didn't even get a response from him.
Weird.
I called.
It seems as if they already know something and everything else in their mind is irrelevant. It's weird.
That's how I felt. That's how I feel. I can't prove it. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's how I feel. And that's what a lot of us feel like. I mean, a lot of us feel like I had 4 or 5 of my neighbors come over to my house one day, and we sat in my house and talking about all this and kind of sharing stories and stuff of what we feel. And we all feel like something is going on. Something isn't right.
Miss Bobby, somebody in the chat asked if when you had that neighborhood vigil for Sebastian, were the Proudfoots invited?
Oh yeah, it was all over our Facebook page.
So they knew.
Absolutely. Well, if they were and we had planned it a week before, so it's not like it was last minute, throw it together. It was, a matter of fact, one of the neighbors that helped me organize it, she actually had posted it on her profile, like just on her as a posting, and just said, I'd love to have a vigil. Let me know if anybody is doing one. And I messaged her and said, hey, why don't we do this in our neighborhood? That way the family can come as well, and it can just be our private neighbors. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. So I put it on the Facebook page as a post. I tagged her in it, and I said, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is where we're going to be. And then several people posted asking what time. We kind of kept going back and forth about what day, what time, and whatever. So did we go to their door and knock on their door and personally invite them? No, but we didn't do that with anybody. And we had a big group show up.
And they knew it. One was existing. Instead, you said they brought 2 representatives, family members.
That's the other thing is that's the other thing is, for a fact they knew because they sent the family.
Yeah. What did the family say? Like who the people that you said that came? Uncle and aunt, right? Uncle and aunt, they said?
Yes.
What did they say anything? Did they talk? They
didn't really talk much. They just kind of stood there and listened to us, introduce ourselves. And we went around the circle. It was quite a big circle. We went around the circle, and everybody, said their prayer and whatever. And then afterwards, we just kind of said, hey, do you guys need anything? And we said, do we need food? Can we set up a food train for you? Or, is there, do you need anything? And they both said, oh, we've got a lot of support. We're good. We're fine. Don't worry about us. We're good. We got plenty of support.
Does somebody asked in the chat, does the Proudfoots have security? Did you guys know if they had, because Katie worked at Brinks, right? Or Brinks security system?
That was the very first thing I asked my neighbor when she told me that Sebastian is on the spectrum. And I said, hold on a minute. Doesn't she work for Brinks? And she said, yes. And I said, she has a special needs child. She works for Brinks. Does she not have security or locks or some kind of like a safety, something to keep him from coming out? And she said, not that I'm aware of. Now, the people before them, I do not believe they had security. They were elderly couple, so I don't even know if they cared. But apparently they didn't, because then Brinks came afterwards and installed. And I know that for a fact because she called me and said, well, they're getting security now. And I think Chris said that was because they felt like they were being threatened and all that kind of stuff, which I can't prove or deny, whatever. That's up to them. That's their business. But from what I understand, they did not have anything before that.
I don't understand how a case so sensitive involves such sheet, so insensitive to think you're handling a child case. You should stand with pride, integrity, respect, and then it will bring grace. Are you talking about me being insensitive? Is that what's up?
So, interesting. Very, very interesting. Has the Proudfoots been back at their home? Like, are they there?
She has been. I think she went back to work because she's been home and her van comes and goes. I think Chris came in one weekend I don't know, but I've kind of just stopped. Like I would drive by once every, like maybe once a week just to see, if they were there because they were there. And it was just like, and Katie's right. I heard her say that they were trying to leave to kind of give us a break because we were getting overwhelmed. We were all getting very upset and very overwhelmed with all the traffic and stuff. And, I do appreciate her saying for recognizing that. However, I was really shocked because I felt like that if my kid was missing, I don't want to say I would handle it differently because I don't ever want to be put in that situation, and I don't want to make karma come after me. But I can't imagine leaving my house if my child was missing.
Yeah, no, I mean she's been called out by that. I mean, she's claiming that she
Yeah.
can't wait for him to come into the door, Bubba, and
Right. But I'm not her.
over to
I'm not
Mississippi.
her, and I can't. I'm not gonna say that she did the wrong thing because I have no business saying that. I'm just surprised. I do appreciate the fact that she did recognize that we were getting overwhelmed with traffic and whatnot. So I do appreciate that. But and we were, but I would just think that maybe Chris goes back to work and she stays there just in case. But everybody handles things differently, and if that's what she felt like she needed to do, then who am I to judge that?
But they haven't, since this incident happened, they really don't come out at all, interact with anybody that you know of.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen them interact with a neighbor very close to them a couple of times, be out talking to one of the neighbors, but I have not seen them out
The last I
talking to
heard, they
anybody
were.
else.
There's
Like I
rumors
said,
there's rumors that they might be moving. You know anything about that? Have you heard? Is there?
I've heard that so many times, and there's no confirmation of that.
Interesting.
I've asked we have a couple of realtors in our neighborhood, and I've asked them, and they've not. It's like I have not heard any confirmation of that.
Has one more thing, has the detectives or authorities ever go back to their house, like in certain time, like maybe like a week or 2 weeks after Sebastian went missing? Have they ever returned to the home?
Oh yeah, they came back. What was it, week 2 or 3? They came back and basically started it all over again. Started the searching all over again, and they also reenacted the whole scene. And they started at like 10 o'clock.
When I watched I believe it was the sheriff talking about this, he said that they have been fully cooperating, but that they haven't cleared anybody, but they have no signs of foul play. And then I heard them say that they have no signs of no foul play or something like that, right? Something along those lines. I don't know. But yeah, nobody's cleared, and
Sunday night
but no signs of foul play.
ish, was it something like that? Sunday night, going into the early the next morning to see if they could kind of like retrace each one of the steps and everything that happened.
Type of deal? Or
Yeah.
Interesting, but nothing seems like, well, got their evidence and got something out of that possibly.
If they did, they're not telling us.
They're not. How's the neighborhood now?
Sam,
I think it's getting better. I mean, I'm noticing a lot of neighbors are getting out more and walking dogs again and talking. And I think people think that we're all like huddled together talking about everything that's going on. And it's not like that at all. I think we're all just trying to stay out of it, trying to give them their space and kind of stay away from everything. And
nah, dude,
we just don't. I know
it's not the same. And I'll tell you why it's not the same. Because they're actually named as suspects. Maybe not specifically, but they've also been said by local law enforcement that they're not cooperating. TBI said the same thing. So it's not the same. Law enforcement is still standing sort of with the parents in this case. For now, we'll see what happens, in the future.
for me, I don't want to get into their personal business. I just don't want to be that neighbor that's all like super nosy and thinks that she knows everything, because I don't know what happened. I don't understand. This kid did not just vanish. He just didn't vanish.
But does any neighbors think it was a kidnapping, or like think their children are in
Well,
danger?
so that was the very first thing I asked on Wednesday when TBI came and sat down with me and talked to me. And I looked at her, I said, I get that you guys are being super quiet about this because it is still an investigation. However, if this kid was kidnapped, don't you think you might want to tell us so that we can kind of lock our kids up and, you know, be safe or whatever? And she, instead of her, and I guess is, you know, again, part of the investigation, she said, well, you should always do that.
That's interesting. Yeah, they have a responsibility. I mean, if they're, one of their theories is Sebastian got kidnapped, and they never said Sebastian was kidnapped.
But there was there were no cars that came up their street and then left up their street and left. The only car that was ever seen was the one that was on Kellen, that parked on the corner of Stafford and Kellen for about 3 or 5 minutes, where the flashlights came towards it, backed up and left. And then the trash truck, and then Katie's SUV, and then the police, or then the school bus, and then the police. So there was no other car that ever drove up Stafford.
Was it a car that the lights went to, or like an SUV or a car? Like, what type of vehicle was it?
I don't know. I don't remember. It just the words that where I was told was unidentified car. I don't know if it was an SUV or a car or what. That was just what I was told. It was an unidentified car. And that was another thing, is when I asked the lead detective, I said, you know, this car that was on Kellen, he was like, yeah, we already figured that out. That was an Uber. And I was like, no, the Uber was a neighbor on Devon that ordered an Uber about 5:30 to go to the airport. I know that. But the car sitting on, why would a car sit on Kellen if they were going up the street to get the customer to leave? I mean, you don't sit there.
Coincidentally, at the same time, lights are flashing around the time.
Well, at that same time, the trash truck would have been through there. So yeah, like, you wouldn't have gotten that confused. Why would a car be sitting on a road like around 3:30, 4 o'clock Monday morning? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, one thing I say, and it's the truth, the law enforcement is not obligated to tell the public the truth.
That's true.
We have law enforcement the truth if we're being interrogated or questioned or whatnot, in a sense, because you could be, you know, charged with lying, but they're not under any legal obligation. I mean, morally, you would think they would tell the truth, but they don't legally have to. And they can lie to the public, and they do. So maybe they're keeping things close to the vest.
I was just really surprised how I felt like he got a little bit defensive with me when I mentioned that I was a neighbor and talking to the neighbors about their surveillance. Because my thought is this, you know, if you were to ask an officer a direct question, if he can't discuss it, instead of arguing with me, the response should have been, I can't confirm or deny that. I can't discuss that. We're still in investigation. Instead of him flat out lying about, or, you know, like defending it and arguing with me, why didn't he just say, well, that's still part of the investigation, I can't comment on that? And I would have simply said, okay, you're right.
This lady reminds me of the moms that bring the orange slices. The orange slices to she's like the momager of like the baseball team or soccer team.
Yeah, absolutely. But he didn't. Integrity of the investigation, no comment.
That's what I would have done. I mean, that's usually what they do. Why argue with me and try to convince me otherwise? It's like he was trying to convince me. Leave that alone. Stop talking about it. That's not part of this.
Gotcha, Bobby. Is there anything else you would like to add that I didn't ask, or anything that you want to put out there that the public should know?
Yeah.
That we forgot?
Like, if you ask enough people for an interview, eventually there's going to be a taker, and she took. And I don't know if she regrets doing this or not. I'm sure that she was called all sorts of nice names and about how, you know, incredibly honest and forthcoming and whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. but I'm sure that she was just greeted by the welcome wagon.
I don't think so. I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything. I just know that, you know, we want this resolved as badly as anybody does. I would love just for this to be over and him to come home, but I really just wish people would, you know, around social media just got really nasty and ugly and started attacking us. One of our neighbors, I will say this, one of the neighbors that live close by, they got the whole rumor about Katie having an affair with a neighbor. What started that?
Interesting. So that's not true. I saw that
Where
circulating.
in the world? Not only that, but one of the neighbors, precious sweet family. I know them personally. They are a great family. They got so attacked by this rumor that their kids started being bullied at school, saying that your parents are the ones that were swingers, started being called swingers. They started getting phone calls from people all over the country claiming that they were swingers.
Yeah,
It
that
got
rumor
so bad.
not true at all about
Not
Katie
that I know.
neighbor. Yeah,
Not
that
that
was
I'm
that.
aware of.
And so that neighbor was getting harassed then, huh?
Bad. It was really bad. People just get so, I mean, I know that they want answers. I know everybody is just really wants answers. I mean, heavens, we want answers. You know, we're living in the middle of this. We want answers. We want all this to go away. We want the truth to be found. You know, we want this to
What
just
channel?
be solved and
I don't
be
even know
done
what
with.
they're.
But making things up and you know, coming to your own conclusion because you don't have an answer is not helping us at all. It's not helping the family. And I'm not here by any means to defend Chris and Katie by any means. I don't know them. I don't know anything about them to defend them. I'm just saying that making up stuff is only hurting our neighborhood, because now you've got people who are harassing us and neighbors wanting information and that kind of thing, and driving her all around. Now that the driving through the neighborhood has calmed down immensely, so that's good.
God.
That would be driving like just regular like YouTubers, curiosity seekers, just crime tours. Sometimes there's crime tours out
Well,
there.
I mean, there were at the beginning, there were a lot of, you know, YouTubers that were coming through the neighborhood, and they would stop and get out of their car and walk up and down the street, videoing, taking pictures and whatever. And it was like a huge invasion of privacy. There's nothing we can do about it because it's a public street. I get that, but have some respect. And then just local people, I guess, feeling like the police weren't doing enough, so they were going to go out themselves and drive, and they would just drive up and around and you know, just drive around over, like up and down around the hill and that kind of thing.
That pretty much
So
calmed down.
yes, that's almost stopped. But we had two neighbors that were trying to sell their house, and neither one of them can sell it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't want. Honestly, I wouldn't want to live in that neighborhood. I mean, the neighborhood itself is nice, but that would suck.
Nope, they both took them off the market because they were getting too many.
So two people tried to sell their home after this incident happened, and they can't sell
Actually, one family actually had their house on the market before this happened, and then when this happened, their realtor just told them to take it off the market because they were getting more phone calls just being nosy than they were legitimately asking about the house.
Like, I remember when the Chris and Shanann Watts's house was up for sale. And I think somebody eventually did buy it. Did they tear it down? I mean, that would be a rough one. I mean, I'm not one of those people that, you know, it's like, oh, the spirits of it. It's just like, you just know kind of what happened here.
And then the other neighbor on the other cul-de-sac actually put their house on the market right afterwards, and then taking it off.
Wow, that's wild.
See, these are things people don't know about. It's interesting, you know, because it you know, might be devaluing the neighborhood, or people might like, hey, I don't want to move to a neighborhood where a child went missing and is still missing. You know, it has a lot of affects people, than not just, you know, the Proudfoots and Seth Rogers, but the whole neighborhood in general. It causes some bad things to happen with everyone, and man, I'm sorry that's happened.
I don't think anybody is going to be able to go anywhere until this is resolved, because I don't know anybody that would want to move into all this. Why would you want to move into a neighborhood where a kid just vanishes?
That's a good point.
Exactly, because those is the type
It's
of neighborhood
scary.
where you want to have a family, build your dreams, career, raise your children, and
Safely and securely.
yes. And I mean, I've been there. I've been in the area. Those homes are beautiful. I mean, I would love to have a dream house like that. Like it's nice, and
Yeah.
just can't imagine. Like just a neighborhood that's never seen probably any crime ever. There's no
So
crime in the neighborhood, right?
we had one incident many, many years ago that was resolved in one day, over and done with, and never had anything else. I mean, this is the kind of neighborhood that, like I said, I mean, my twins were born in that house, and when they were little, I didn't let them go out by themselves, but I would feel comfortable with them going outside in the yard. As long as it was like, just don't get in the street, because we live on the main road, and you'd have the big trucks and you have the
Crazy that you're saying.
school bus and that kind of thing coming through. And I would just say, stay in the yard. But I didn't have to worry about somebody coming up and grabbing them. I just never felt that. I never feared that. I mean, I knew my neighbors. My family all lived in the neighborhood with me. I mean, my parents lived there. My brother and sister used to live there. We all lived there together, and my kids would walk in between the yards to her house, and her kids would walk in between the yard to my house. My kids would go up the corner and play basketball with the neighbor kids, and they would all ride bikes around, and you just never worried about anybody coming in and doing anything.
But now people are kind of worried a
I
little
don't
bit.
ever, I mean, I'm not seeing kids out playing like they used to be.
Sad, because kids need to get out a little bit and enjoy the fresh air and the great outdoors. The
All of a sudden, JLR's Michelle Obama. No chocolate milk for kids. Get out there.
outdoors in their yard and stuff. It's just so sad. Hopefully this young man gets found, and your neighborhood could get back to normal, a sense of normalcy. I know everyone is a little bit on edge still, pins and needles, but really appreciate you coming on and providing insight. Everyone is very grateful. People in the chat, if you got some questions for Bobby, just leave them in the chat and I'll talk to you offline and maybe you can answer some of the questions. But I really appreciate you coming on. We really never really heard from a neighbor really coming on the record speaking about it. And sorry you had to go through this, man. And I
think we all just were trying to be quiet.
I met your children when I was out there. You got the coolest sons out there. Tell them I said.
I tell them they're in there watching.
I'm not going to say their names, but I know their names. But just tell them, they're cool.
Now go ahead, say their names. They won't mind. You could do what that Roger dude did earlier. You could give out someone's address if you want to.
You raised them very, very well, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. They're actually up there watching the game, and I said, I gotta go to my car and sit in the car a minute, go talk to JLR. Oh my gosh, you're gonna be on JLR. I was like, yes.
Thank you. So everyone appreciates it, Bobby. Thank you, and we're praying for Sebastian for sure. Stay safe.
He liked that. JLR loved that. He was like, yeah. Okay, well, yeah, it was interesting. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That was different. I don't know. I feel like I listened to a lot, but like maybe a lot of nothing. So I don't know. It didn't really. It was fine. It didn't do anything for me, but yeah, I understand. It was interesting. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know exactly what I take from it, but all right. Anyway, appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, it was great. I know you loved it. Dynamite, and this is just my advice, and you could tell me to shove it. Although you're watching the show, it's okay to listen. I mean, you're not the one doing it. Yeah, it was pretty good. It was very nice. I mean, I don't know. You can, it's just all right. It's fine to listen. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, I'm out of here. Good night.